work ethic for me is watching people that I respect and that I think are good at the job or better at the job than I am, are in a place where I want to get.
We're so excited to have Richard Jefferson here with us. Of course, former NBA player, turned broadcaster, turned entrepreneur, turned empire builder. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited. This is not my normal podcast format, so that makes it a little bit more fun.
I know we're putting you in the hot seat because you're a podcaster as well. You know, you are a jack of all trades, and you know, Alex, I feel like it's such an interesting opportunity for both of us, but especially you, because is it like looking in a mirror here?
It really is. And, you know, Rich and I have become good friends. So disclaimer. And I've really admired the way he's gone about his 17-year career. He's got so many wonderful relationships in the game. And he's the ultimate catalyst for building bridges, not burning bridges. And I think that's going to help him and serve him well in his career, also in business.
Wow, but first of all, let's just slow down here, right? That's A-Rod right there. Like, I understand this. Like, I'm not a New Yorker. I was drafted there. I lived there for a lot of years. So to have a legend speak so highly, somebody that I've looked up to and watched and tracked and just watched all the moves that he's made on, you know, on and off the floor, court, field, whatever the hell we're going to call it. On and off, it's been impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Rich, that's an interesting place to start because you come up through a storied college program at University of Arizona. You come into the league. It feels like from the beginning you are thinking of yourself very holistically, thinking of yourself as someone who obviously has a lot of ambition on the court, but because of what you were exposed to from a business perspective, like, was that the case that you were looking to the A-Rods and others of the world? And who were you looking at?
Well, you know, at that time, Alex and I didn't really know each other, but it was one of those things that when I got drafted, you get to New York City. New York City is just the financial capital of the world. And accidentally, you meet people and you have conversations with them and you start to pick up things. And I'm a 21-year-old kid with no financial history. Parents have no financial history. And all of a sudden, you're just put in rooms and you're friends with owners now. You're meeting, how did this guy own the team? And it's like, well, he sold this. So all of a sudden, you start to get into rooms accidentally. And then it's kind of what you do when you're in those rooms that can kind of dictate your learning. I learned very quickly, and A-Rod knows this, is that when you are in the New York media, you don't really say a lot. You don't say a lot. You keep it very vanilla. And from there, so you kind of watch people and how they navigate and how they kind of keep their stuff separate. But for me individually, the people that I looked to were the people that I had the luxury of getting to know. Artie Rabin is one of the people, just being in rooms with him. The Landises that were former owners of the Nets, still friends with their family to this day. So it was really just being in those rooms and getting to know some people that had tremendous amount of success in random fields that you start to pick up tidbits from them.
So, Richard, you have two of the great ingredients you need in business, and that's wonderful relationships and a really good communicator. When and how early did you start thinking about relationships and communicating skills do matter?
Probably in high school. When we talk about just communication relationships, that's just who I was as a person. And then you kind of, when you start to formulate yourself as a young man, you're like, who do I want to be? How do I want to be? How do I want to walk in rooms? And everybody has a different vibe. Some people want to walk into rooms and be respected. Some people want to walk into rooms and leave a mark. For me, when I want to walk into a room, I want people to have a good energy when I walk in, because I like the energy like that in the room. So as a young man, I kind of got into that. And then I started to see over many years how that has now, looking back on my life, me just having good energy and just being a good person and communicator. 15 years later, people are coming up to me now with opportunities saying, hey, Rich, you were so cool in 2004, and now I'm the head of XYZ. I'd love to do something with you just because you were, you know, a good dude in that moment. You might not see these things in year one, year two, but over multiple years, the relationships and the energy that you've brought into rooms typically gets fed back to you.
I'd love to talk about, sort of the transition, out of the league and into broadcasting. Was that something you always wanted to do? Did opportunities immediately present themselves? Were you going for that? Like, how does that transition happen? Because I know a little bit about how it happened with Alex, but would love to hear your story.
Yeah, well, Alex knows these things. It's a lot about relationships. My guy Flip, his guy from the Yes Network who just retired, Flip had watched me with the Yes Network, Frank DeGrace, who runs the Nets. And so I had worked with him since I was a rookie. And for 5 straight years, when I was about to retire from year 12 on, Flip and Frank DeGrace would be like, Richard, we want you to come back to the Yes Network. We want you to come back here. And so for me, I kind of had an idea like, hey, I'm going to retire. What am I going to do next? I think I can go do this. There's an insecurity, but a curiosity and confidence, right? It's like you're not afraid to fail, but like this is something that I want to pursue. And so we talk about this, the relationships that I had built. I hadn't been with the Nets for over a decade, but over those 6 years, just being, a good person to the media, being supportive of what they were trying to do, they were the first to give me an opportunity. The Yes Network and the Nets were the first broadcast contract that I'd signed.
You're talking about John Filippelli, right? When you say
yes,
Flip.
John Filippelli. Yeah, John. Yeah. For our audience, he's just retired, but he's a legend. One of the first people to be like, Richard, you could be great at this, right? You have those people that are like, Richard, you'd be good. Frank DeGrace is one of those people says you're good. But when it's just, I guess it's different from somebody that you feel like, oh, you're just kind of fluffing me. You're just kind of messing with me. You're just not messing with me, but you're just kind of like telling me this in a manner that's like you want me to work with you. So Flip was a guy that I didn't know well, but I knew he had been the guy. So for him to step out and be like, Richard, I think you could be amazing at this. You're like, well, this guy's seen it all. So like I'm going to believe him. And like Alex, he's talked about his relationship with you. You probably have to speak a little bit more to who Flip is, because he's kind of like this urban legend, right? People talk about him, but people don't really get to see him often, but he knows everything about that industry and the broadcasting space and the producing and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, John Filippelli, we call him Flip. I mean, what he is basically the Michael Jordan of producers. He has over 120 Emmys. He's done many World Series. He kind of discovered Bob Costas and many, many others. Like you, he's given me a lot of tips and encouragement. There's no one better. I mean, he is the guy. But Rich, going back to you, what was the common thread that took you from Flip telling you, hey, Rich, you can do this, to I know I can do this and I can actually make a career out of it?
From there, it was, there's a couple things. One, being an athlete coming into this space. This is, I hate to say these things because I don't want to be negative, but the bar was very, very low. Not from like a talent, ability, skill set, but like from a level of, let's say, professionalism. Do they show up on time? Will they work hard? Yes, they made $100 million. Are they going to show up for this, like 5K date on time and locked in and sharp? And then the more I started to be like, okay, well, this, if you're going to do something, be great at it. Don't just kind of do something casually unless it's a hobby. If you're going to spend time on it, try and be great. And once I kind of got that, okay, well, people that I respect and see the industry respects are saying that I have a chance to be good. I have my own level of confidence, and now it's all about my work ethic. Talent, if you don't work hard, people will outwork you. So for me, once I got into this industry, I approached it kind of like it being an athlete and just like, how hard can I work to see how great I can be?
I love that, Rich. But for our audience, let's bring them behind the curtains a little bit. We know what working hard looks like in basketball, right? You do your drills, you go to the gym. That's pretty common. But tell us what working hard means and really prepping and elevating yourself in the world of broadcasting. Are you watching more games? Is it relationships? Is it conversations? Tell me a little bit about that.
That's a great question, because there's so many things, and there's a difference in learning how to be great in a different field. You can bring a work ethic, but you also have to learn where to channel it. Let's say from work ethic for me is watching people that I respect and that I think are good at the job or better at the job than I am, or in a place where I want to get. I would say Nate Burleson is one of the guys that I've gotten to know. Awesome guy over at CBS. There's people in this space that I've worked. Again, Michael Strahan, he was another New York guy around the same time of us. So I'd gotten to know him a little bit when I was younger. I've watched his ascension. Ryan Clark at ESPN. Those guys that you're like, oh, those guys are putting in the time, whether it's how they speak, whether that how they communicate. So that to me, watching those guys and saying, okay, what are they doing well? Why did they win the Emmy? All of these things, that's for me is work ethic. When you watch Michael Jordan, you're like, oh, I want to go practice my fadeaway to be like him because that's an unstoppable move. So the work ethic then changes to, okay, who's great at this job? How do I learn from them? What do they do well? So that's one step of just the skill level of the professional. The next part is obviously your prep, your reference, understanding like, okay, I'm watching all the games, I'm reading articles, I'm reading books about past greats and what impacted them. So you can have reference points for the viewer, right? You can know basketball, but if you're like, hey, in Bill Russell's book, it said X, and this is something that Jaylen Brown has talked about, like that reference point just carries so much weight. And then the next part, there's a cadence. There's a cadence to how you speak. How you speak on a podcast is different than if you're hosting a show. It's different than if you're being an analyst. It's different than if you're calling a game. All of them have different cadences, how long you have to speak, how clear and concise. Don't use 12 words when you can use 9. Those are things that now that's a different skill. And then you start to watch the people that are great at it. Like I said, again, I mentioned Nate and Ryan and some of these guys. Those are the guys that I'm like, oh, those guys, I see exactly what they're doing. One random talk. Ryan Clark won the Emmy a couple years ago, and I'm giving him some love because he's outstanding and he's somebody that I'm like, oh, he's putting in the time, putting in the work. I noticed that he took out every filler word. I was watching his 2-minute segments on Scott Van Pelt, and I was like, he didn't say one he didn't say one he didn't say, there was no filler words. So I texted him, and I know that there's no way to do that without work. If you study this job, if you study this, there's no way to do that without work. So I go, I see what you're doing. That's really impressive. How did you do it? He said, Richard, I had to slow down the way I speak every single day. And sometimes it makes you feel like an idiot, but I had to slow down the way I speak so I don't speak on air one way, speak like just with my people one way, right? There's a difference, but that was one of those things. And so to watch a guy like that, notice what he was doing and how he was doing it, and him to say, if this is what you want, you have to change the way you speak across all platforms. And that can help you get rid of the ums and the ahs. And that stuff to me is like next level that people don't even really process in this industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, Richard, one thing that I'm always interested in, and Alex and I have talked a lot about this on this show and offline, is the idea of, getting into the booth or getting on the sideline and, having to be critical, having to, talk about, people that people that you're friends with, people that you played with, former teammates, people you admire, and, being truthful. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear the real stuff from someone like you. Was that easy for you to do? Was it hard for you to do? How do you master the art of being honest without coming off like a jerk?
This is where I will say I have an advantage, and I recognize my advantage. I try and acknowledge it. I've always been crazy. I've always been this person. So whether if I was on your team, while the media might not have known it, while like I wasn't really on social media, so every teammate of mine has always known, oh, that's Richard. You just know he's going to say some wows. Even opponents, because I never really talk trash on the court. I might say sarcastic things, but I was never. So when the NBA community knows you as such, and I played in the league for 17 years, the people in the NBA know that, all my teammates over the years and coaches, I was always just that like sarcastic, like ball breaker. So now when I get into the media space, I only talk on television like I would talk to a player if I was sitting next to him on a bench. That's always my rule. What would I say to you if I was sitting next to the bench? And sometimes I would sit next to people on the bench and be like, that was a trash shot. Like that, come on. What were you doing? Right. And they know that it's coming from a place of like sarcasm and funny. So when you get grandfathered in to kind of that, and I would never compare it to Charles and would never compare it to Shaq, but like Charles' reputation preceded him. And then the media got to get a hold of that. So that's just always who's Charles been. I've always been just like a sarcastic joker. So it doesn't matter if you knew me at Arizona, if you knew me in the McDonald's game, if you knew me, at year 15. I was always that person. I'm just now being able to convey that to the public and do it in a joking way.
I want to shift a little bit, if we can, to life sort of beyond basketball, because you've taken on a lot of entrepreneurial activities as well. How do you pick and choose? I know this is something Alex thinks about a lot in terms of his portfolio and the diversity of that. Like, how do you go about it?
I'm still learning, right? And now I have more time. Sports can be all consuming. Where like you're consumed by it and you have a couple other side projects. Alex is next level because he was building an empire while also being super locked in. I was more locked in and just had other interests. I think for me, I've picked up on trends here and there. I started doing some social media stuff when I was with the Cavs, and I noticed how much people were loving the behind the scenes. And that kind of led me to like, maybe I should start a podcast. Maybe I should do this. Now, this was in 2016 when not a lot of people knew what it was. And we started it on the road. Channing Frye, Allie Clifton, and myself, we were one of the first like sports podcasts, and people were, what is this? And it was a changing of the media, and we were one of the first. And then I'll say, even with like my yoga studio, because you kind of pick up on trends. I was living in Santa Monica, and if people know LA, there's kind of like a bubble. There's a Hermosa, Manhattan, Redondo Beach bubble. Then there's Santa Monica, Venice. So I was living in Santa Monica, Venice, and there's a beautiful yoga studio there. And, I was training, doing that. More and more athletes were loving yoga. I really got into it. And I had multiple friends that were driving from Hermosa, Manhattan Beach up to Santa Monica. And I'm like, what are you guys coming up here for? There's like, well, there's no nice yoga studio down in the South Bay. Then I was on a plane, and somebody, there was a young lady that's next to me. Oh, I live in South Bay. Oh, I go to Hot Aid up in here in Santa Monica. And I was just like, wow, more and more people. I was like, why not open this business? This seems like an opportunity. LA, Hermosa, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, that's the most fit area of LA. And LA is the most fit city in the world. So I looked at it from like, wait, there's an opportunity here. And so me and my friend, we started doing the numbers. We started trying to see what this would look like. I don't know anything about a small business. I didn't know anything about yoga or running I didn't know anything, but I recognized an opportunity, and I recognized that there was somewhat of a hole in the market of the most fit area of LA in the most fit city in the world that didn't have something that I think the community could really like. And so we opened it. We went through years of research, and we did all the stuff. We found the location, and there was so much success, and we were very blessed and very fortunate because of the community. But there was success because I truly felt like we were solving a problem that did exist. If people didn't have to drive 30 minutes anymore and they could drive 10, they could drive 5, that's what we offered to them. And then from there, I learned so much. We've been blessed with the success there as a small business, but that has been probably the single greatest thing, and probably my most proudest, is that I took something that I knew nothing about. I recognized an opportunity, and then obviously came through and had success with it.
Rich, I love that. And I really admire guys like you, where I call them three-dimensional career, and where you've mastered hoops, you've mastered media, and now you're trying to master the third leg, which is business and entrepreneurship. Warren Buffett always taught me that 80% is planning and showing up, and 20% is execution. When you think about Rich Jefferson, Inc., 5, 7, 10 years from now, what are your dreams? What are you forecasting?
Man, truly, and this is where, I've really gravitated, and I'm appreciative of you, Alex, because I've always watched. You know me now personally as an observer. So when I tell you I've observed for a very long time, that's just kind of like how my brain works. I'm always constantly observing different things in different places. For me, in 5 to 10 years, it's just a well-rounded, portfolio, to say it at least. I've owned some apartment buildings with good friends, and there's been talks of a possible development there. But just some multifamily units. I have my own podcast, which I own. I have a business, and one of those things is, I've heard there's a bunch of business sayings, but it's like, you're not really making money unless you're making money while you're not working, right? Or while you're sleeping. And I think about the yoga studio. I go in there twice a week. I take yoga, but I'm not a part of the everyday infrastructure. So that thing is just an income that I get to. And so then you're like, oh, I see this. How can I duplicate this? Whether it's a chain of that, whether it's finding another hole in the market, the same kind of like listening to the community of what was lacking. That same kind of conversation is out there about other things. I didn't know anything about yoga, and we were able to be successful. So for me, I just look at it like, in 5-10 years, I want a level of growth. I want to be able to be even more well-rounded in the financial space, and just a better understanding of what's going on in the world. As you know, just understanding the world right now is a very financially dangerous or financially beneficial place, depending on how you're observing it and how you're interacting with it.
So, Rich, when it comes to some of the players that you, coming out of Arizona, mirrored and admired and perhaps mentored you, maybe give me a name or two there. My guy in the business world was Magic, and he has had such a print in my business career, pre and post retirement. Who are some of the guys that you've looked up in your sport?
Man, there's so many. That's a good one. I think if you're really trying to improve yourself as a human being, you take something from everyone. It doesn't matter if it's a quote. It doesn't matter if it's a line. It's like, I take something. Like, Alex, I'll give you your flowers. Like, I look to you, and just I had a meeting, and let me just give Alex some flowers. We worked with the same social media team, even though we had known each other, but that was the first time we were able to start having more interactions. And went to Alex's house to have a meeting with them, just talk. We talked hoops, we hung out, and he had a business meeting that he was doing right after. And he was like, Richard, I think you should stay for this business meeting. And it was just on their deck. They were having lunch, and didn't know anything that these human beings were saying. It was so outside. I knew what they were discussing, but it was the connections, and they spent 15 minutes talking. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Oh yeah, I've worked with them, and oh, we've invested in this. And all of a sudden I'm getting a bird's eye view of this amazing conversation that Alex not only invited me to, and knew that I would just be blown away. And that impact, again, Alex, I don't know if I've really conveyed. I know I said thank you and I appreciate it, but just to be here in this moment and say thank you for that. And that to me is when you get yourself in these positions, and then to have a guy like Alex say, Richard, great talking basketball. Would you like to sit in on this meeting that I'm about to have on some investments? And you're like, yeah, I would love to. And then to learn so much in such a short conversation. And I didn't say a word. I just stood on the side and was just like, oh, okay, they're talking about numbers that I have not really talked about before in my life. And those are the things that I'm appreciative of you, Alex, because that opened my mind, that opened my thirst and hunger even more for wanting to understand more of the business side and the financial side, and really just improving what I feel like I can accomplish there. So when I say people that I've looked to, you're one of those people. And that's why when you invited me to that next level, it was a very, very special time.
Oh, well, that was my pleasure. And Jace, I got to tell you, the one thing about Rich, just to give him a little props back, is most athletes will come in, they got 3 other things to do, and they move on. Or they may say, I'll catch the next meeting. But for him to sit there and stand there and put in the time, that's why I think Rich is going to have such a phenomenal career in that third leg, which is business and entrepreneurship.
So, Richard, one thing that you've been open and honest about is a bad experience, which is basically someone who worked with you completely took advantage of you. Now under criminal indictment. Alex talks all the time about the he surrounds himself with. Athletes are very vulnerable, candidly, because of the amount of money that you guys make. I know it has brought you to really want to help people with financial literacy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You don't have to dance around it. Yeah. Some crook stole a bunch of money and swindled me, right? You don't have to dance around it. I can see him like, so you've been. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. No. Yeah, it was.
But someone stole a bunch of money from you. Like, what do you do with it? How do you do that?
A lot of money. They stole a lot of money. There's two things. And again, everybody's different. So I just say from my experience. One, I look at myself from like, how did I get over it? I was fortunate where I had another 5-7 years left of my career. So like, obviously my saving and my spending was never crazy. But I also look at it when it went down and the stuff, and we'll get more into detail. I look at it from a space of, if you would have told me the day I got drafted that I would own my home, my mom and dad would own their home, and neither of us would have to work again, I would sign up. It doesn't matter if you got 100 million in the bank, you got 5 million in the bank, you got 20, it doesn't matter. If that's the goal, is to change your life. My life was changed, right? That's how I kept myself not being like, woe is me. I believe that I had future earning potentials. And honestly, sometimes it's about your L's. So that situation, I was a very young man, and he had forged the power of attorney, and he was kind of cooking the books, and my parents with no financial really understanding, me with very little, because I just knew my spending, it was under control given the amounts of money that I was making. So he was more cooking the books, and just like a lot of people, when 2008 and that financial crisis hit and everyone started checking their books to make sure everything was good, it was like, wait a second, something's not right. And, again, I think athletes also, and one of the reasons why I like talking about it, and is because I think athletes are afraid to say. There's an ego, there's a machismo of like, hey, I got taken, I got swindled, something happened. I think it's better to talk about it. I think it's better to have these discussions of how this happened. And so for me, that's what happened. I was a part of an FBI investigation in wire fraud, and we were doing wiretaps, and it was all sorts of stuff to see what this individual was doing. And what I probably learned most from that, and I value that, because you can make mistakes 20 to 30. You don't want to make mistakes 50 to 60. You don't want to, those are the areas where you want to be a lot less risky. You don't want to be, so for me to be like, hey, I made these mistakes, what did I learn? I tell everybody this, all the young men, always have 2 financial advisors. You make enough money, right? Have 2 financial advisors. Have them check each other's work. If you don't know about this, someone could be cooking the books. You can be looking at it. This is what your bank account says, this, and you have no idea. But if you have 2 different people from 2 different places that maybe you send 70%, maybe you send 30%, whatever it is, at least they're able to check each other's work and hold each other accountable because they don't benefit from each other. That's the one thing that I learned. I'm like, oh, all of my situation, all of my money, all of my portfolio will not be with one person. Because if that person goes Bernie Madoff, if that person goes crazy, and that's what I would tell people as an athlete, it's like, if Bernie Madoff can steal $40 billion from the richest, smartest, most intelligent financial people in the world, who the hell am I to think that I can't get my money taken? Everyone can. So you learn, your financial literacy starts to go up and understanding of it. So that's really, it was a terrible situation. I've kept a blessed perspective about it and the lessons that I learned, and I just try and help give people information about it.
We're going to get to our lightning round in a second, but one thing before we get to that, I did want to talk about, because it sort of dovetails with all of this, is, Rich, you went to a storied, college and played basketball. Lute Olson, obviously like a legendary coach at University of Arizona. As you look back at the college game now, I have to think about a lot of the warnings that you're giving with NIL, with the transfer portal. How much do you worry about sort of the state of the college basketball business at this point? And is there anything that we can do in your mind to ensure that those players remain financially safe? I'm sort of leading you here because I'm giving you some of my own feelings, obviously. Like what needs to happen here to ensure that, everybody turns out okay?
Well, one, great question, Jason. And I think people sometimes like, oh, well, why are people, I wouldn't say, like, for my opinion, it's because basketball changed my life. the sport changed my life. So I care about how the sport is not only played, but the environment in which the younger athletes are navigating. I care about that because I know what it meant for me and what it did for me. And I wanted to do that for other young men and women. I think the NIL thing is scary. I'll tell you, just again, from my own financial space, my biggest worry is taxes. Right, all these kids are getting all this money, and we know the IRS doesn't come until all the money's gone, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you owe us $250,000 in taxes." That's the part that I want to make sure that is being communicated when you're getting $100,000 check and you're getting this, and you're 21, 22, you don't really, and if your parents don't come from that, like even if schools are teaching you financial literacy, if you don't fully have experience and understand, and then I just don't think there's enough good people to help navigate them. Do they have the right financials advisors? Do they have, and we know it's just littered with crooks, especially because you have a new 200, 300 people that now can get millions of dollars. That brings in all the crooks and all the jerks and all those idiots. For me, I think there still needs to be regulation. I think the NCAA, they dropped the ball. They had a monopoly. They wanted to continue using that monopoly. The Supreme Court said, okay, enough is enough. And then all the wheels and regulations just came off. And it just became the wild, wild west. Well, that's not good either. The way the NCAA had it before is not good. The way it is now is not good. They need to come up with some sort of regulation, some sort of group that says, hey, this is what you can. We can't have kids transferring from schools every single year to try and get the highest bidder, and then all of a sudden they don't graduate college. That's not the goal of this. And so I don't know, baseball has a good formula where if you go to college, you got to be there for 3 years, even though a team can draft you and hold your rights. Then you also could go to junior. There's a lot of different things. And I think the NCAA, because it is a feeder for the NBA should have some sort of idea or work with the NCAA. It's like, we don't want all of this chaos that's going on. I love that the players are making money, but Alex, you know this. Jason, you know this. Just because everyone's making money doesn't mean it's a good environment. It can be a toxic environment that can lead to things 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah, well, I mean, my own view of it, having done a little bit of work around this is candidly what we actually need and what could help solve this problem, and not to put more work on your shoulders, Rich, is like, I think we need more former athletes involved in this who actually understand the rigors of it and the traps and the cons and also the upside. So hopefully that comes to fruition, because it's a tough position.
Another thing where Alex might know, Arizona just left and went to the Big 12. Big 12? Are we Big 12? Yeah, Big 12. It's still confusing to me, right? Because we're not in the pack.
I know.
But,
and honestly, it could change tomorrow.
It could change tomorrow. But the commissioner there is Brett Yormark, who used to work in New York, used to work with the Nets. And so he invited me to be a part of the alumni council as a representative for Arizona. It was myself and Jenny Finch as representatives from Arizona to be a part of an alumni council to kind of bring that to, and the goal is to give that former athlete opinion and to be in that space. So I'm not just talking about it. I'm being about it. I'm trying to be a part of these panels, and I'm working these things so that I can have a positive voice and an impact when the time does come.
All right. We don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been very generous. So let's do the lightning round. And let's do it. All right. So 5 questions. You know how to do this. I'll start, and then Alex will pick it up. All right. Here we go. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received on deal making or business?
Rob Mailer, one of my brothers, said, set your price and live your life. Don't argue, don't fight, don't this. If this is your number, if this is your mark, set it. Maybe you have to adjust it at times, but set your price and live your life. Don't stress.
Who's your dream deal-making partner?
Ooh, that's a good one. Dream deal-making partner. ESPN.
Okay.
What's the most nervous you've ever been?
Most nervous I've ever been was actually in the slam dunk contest that I did in 2004. It was horrific. I was terrible, but that spotlight, and that was the first, you've done some of these things, but then all of a sudden it's like, all right, Richard Jefferson, lights go down, all of the arena's there, and it's just like, whoa, this is kind of intense. And Amar'e, I apologize, right? I'm gonna tell him story. So Amar'e Stoudemire, we were both in the dunk contest and we were sitting next to each other. And I was 23, he was even younger than me, and he was like, I don't think I've ever been so nervous. And I'm like, bro, me neither. This is trippy. Because you're still a kid. You're still a fan, right? When you're 23, you can't even believe you're in the NBA. And all of a sudden you're in the dunk contest that you watched your whole life. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, this is a bit intense. So that might be high nervous.
That's amazing.
All right, speaking of intense, what's your hype song before a big meeting or negotiation?
Ooh, Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill.
Ooh.
Meek Mill, Dreams and Nightmares. That just is like, let's go.
All right, last question. What's your advice for someone who wants a career like yours?
Don't be afraid to fail. Like my confidence comes because I have no problem taking an L, getting back up on my feet. I come from nothing. I'm from Glendale, Arizona. My parents didn't play sports. My brothers didn't play sports. I found basketball. I liked it, believed in myself. And then once you've believed in yourself, you should just continue doing that in whatever field or whatever thing that you do. So that's all I've done. I don't have any broadcasting background, but if you've listened to this, you know I study people, I learn from people, I support people and say, hey, you're doing a great job. If you kind of follow that blueprint over a long period of time and stack days and weeks and hours and months and years, you will have success. It's literally impossible to not have success, but it is possible to not put in the work.
Well, great stuff. Thank you so much, Richard Jefferson. You are a legend. We love watching and listening to you, and it was great to go deep on your career and get a sense of your ambition. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Rich.
Thank you both. Seriously, man. Thank you. I appreciate you both.